Hello and welcome back to the Engage 8 podcast. I am Josh with my co-host Mike. It is episode 70 today. We are starting our division previews, which brings us I actually think today might be the exact to the day 1 year anniversary of our first recording. I think it was August 7th, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
But
Historic.
yes, it is historic, and probably a good time for us to say that Zach is not with us today. He's not going to be with us for the foreseeable future. He's doing some other stuff right now with the current company he's working at. You might see him pop in here occasionally as guest appearances, or maybe us go on his shows. But for this season, as of right now, it is just going to be me and Mike. But everything is going to continue as normal. We're going to start with division previews today. Today we are doing the AFC and NFC East. Then the next week should be the West, and then the South, and then the North, I believe, which will take us right into week 1 of the football season. So, Mike, do you want to get us started talking about the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, man, we are close. Buffalo
Or do you want
Bills.
me to do it with ads and losses? It's up to you.
You can do it. I mean, I have the ads and losses for the AFC East here.
Oh, okay, cool. You can start this.
They did extend some of their guys that they already had. Teron Johnson signs a 3-year extension. Daquan Jones. They keep Deion Dawkins, their star tackle. AJ Epinesa also extended. They needed him to help secure that D line. Cam Lewis re-signed. A lot of losses for this team, though. A couple obviously really big guys. We saw Stephon Diggs, their star receiver, get traded. They also lose Gabe Davis, the second string receiver for them. That left that room a little empty. They lose both of their elite safeties and Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, a duo they've had for a very long time. A lot of guys that they had to move on from. Cap issues. We saw Leonard Floyd go as well. Naeem Hines, who missed last season due to injuries before the season with the jet ski. Dane Jackson, Tim Settle, just to name a few. Shaq Lawson, defensive end, also gone. Jordan Phillips, Linval Joseph. A lot of restructuring to do for this team as a whole. They still have Josh Allen. That's the main guy they need. They bring back their offensive coordinator who came in the middle of last season, Joe Brady, who's really started their run towards the end of the season. Bobby Babich is in as their new defensive coordinator. Last year, they did not have one. Sean McDermott assumed the duties for the season. In the draft, they had a couple big guys that they drafted. Keon Coleman in the second round, I'm a big fan of. I think that could really be great for Josh Allen. Cedric Van Pran, center guard later in the fifth round. Cole Bishop, safety. Like I said, they lost both Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, so they needed another one there. Dwayne Carter, defensive tackle. Your guy, Ray Davis from Kentucky, running back. They have James Cook already, but gotta need more running backs. And speaking of James Cook, that is someone I'm very high on going into this season. We saw with Joe Brady towards the end of last season, James Cook get a lot of touches. This team was running the ball a lot, and they were finally getting a lot of success. They came back, upset, and beat the Dolphins to win the division. I think that James Cook's going to have another big season. Josh Allen, I think this team's going to be running the ball a lot with both Josh Allen and James Cook. Like I said, no Stephon Diggs anymore. They really reshaped their wide receiver room as a whole. They got Keon Coleman. They brought in Curtis Samuel, who I think can be very good for them. Marquez Valdez-Scantling as well. Mac Hollins. They have Chase Claypool. A lot of depth guys that you would probably see on the waiver wire towards the middle of the season in fantasy football. All come together here on one team. One guy I'm really excited to see also, Khalil Shakir. I think he could be very good with Josh Allen. Help move. I think this offense kind of how the Chiefs were last year, where 2 years ago, when they got rid of Tyreek Hill, they didn't have one alpha receiver anymore. They kind of had a couple to throw to. I kind of like that for this team. And then tight end Dalton Kincaid, I'm very high on going into this season. I think he could finish as a top 5 tight end. They still have Dawson Knox as well. They just got a lot of solid guys. It's just going to be on Josh Allen to limit the turnovers like we've pretty much said his entire career. But I'm very high on this offense still. I think they're going to contend for the division and the playoffs. We saw them struggle last year. I think they were able to get through it. And I think they're just kind of continue what they finished last year.
I like the comparison you said with the Chiefs when they lost Tyreek and they had no receivers. The difference is, that was also around the exact same time when the Chiefs defense started to really shape up. My biggest concern for the Bills this year is their defense. They replace Hoyer and Micah Hyde with Mike Edwards and Kareem Jackson. Obviously, I do not love that. Sean McDermott is a defensive oriented head coach, so I expect them to be in a position to succeed. Whether they will or not, I think is going to be a completely different situation here. I think Keon Coleman's going to be amazing. There's a bunch of great things have come out of camp from him already. Like you said, Curtis Samuel and MVS, both are guys that I think could be solid wide receiver two and wide receiver threes. But when you have as good of a run game as the Bills had at the end of last year, and they're going to have this year, as well as having a playmaker top two, top three quarterback in the league in Josh Allen, it's hard for me to bet against this team. We're doing predictions for where everybody's going to finish, right? I have a
Yeah.
as well. I forgot to say are we still doing OROY, DROY, OPOY, DPOY? Because I have those as well.
Oh, I don't have those, but I can make those pretty
Yeah, okay.
easily.
That's what I figured. I figured I'd let you know now. But
Yeah.
anyways, what I was saying, I think this offense is not something that I'm concerned with in the slightest. I think they're going to continue to be successful just because of having the run game that they do and having a guy in Josh Allen who can just make plays for you, and you don't have to worry about the most important positions on the field. I think they're probably going to get shredded on defense a lot, and I think they're playing in a very, very competitive division. So for that reason, I do have them finishing third in the AFC East. But regardless, I still think this is going to be a wild card team. I think we see three teams make the playoffs from the AFC East this year, and I have the Bills finishing at three. They also have their corner Elam has been having a good camp so far too, which they need these lower named guys to be able to break out for them, especially in the secondary on defense. He was a first round pick in 22. He's been looking good in camp so far. They are really hoping that he can be a piece for them, and hopefully for their sake, he can be.
Yeah, this is also a defense that lost a lot to injury last season. Matt Milano went down with an injury.
He's not going to be back off rip either, I don't think.
Yeah,
I think
I
he's
don't
going to be back midseason.
It doesn't have him listed as questionable on here, but yeah, Trey White, obviously I think tore his Achilles. He's going to be out for a while. We saw a real big digression from Von Miller. He's not even listed as a starter anymore. They need one of the.
Trey White's not on the team anymore, is he? Is he on the Rams or something?
Oh, Trey White's on with the Rams?
I'm pretty sure Trey White is on the Rams. I have him on my losses here.
Oh, well.
Also, I don't remember. Did you say Leonard Floyd too in their losses?
Yes, I said Leonard Floyd in their losses.
A lot of defensive guys. I mean, everybody's focused on the fact that they lost their wide receiver 1 and 2, but their defenses are a lot more concerning for me, or their losses are a lot more concerning for me on the defensive end. Yeah. Mitch Morse too.
Mitch Morse, I think I said that one. Just a lot of loss on the defense, like you said. Yeah, they did bring in Kareem Jackson, I think, recently. That could help them on the secondary a little bit. They got DeMar Hamlin still. He's a specialty at fake punts to bring in there. The defense, I just kind of think it's going to have to be a lot of Sean McDermott making the right calls and putting these players in the best position possible. I like their linebackers with Milano if he's healthy. Terrell Bernard, I think, is good, but they just got to be healthy and ready to go. I got them finishing first or second. I think I'm leaning more towards second, but with Josh Allen, if he has another MVP season, I could see them finishing first. I'll give my top 4 at the end, though.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to stop doing that, but you do you want me to pick up on the next one, or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. The Jets are the next team I have on here. I'm not going to say what my prediction for them is because we're not doing that.
I have a feeling I know where you put them.
But I have also made, I think, 2 separate blog posts about it and maybe 2 TikToks about it. But whatever. I have them winning the division. I think they're going to be one of the best handful of teams in the NFL next year. They add Mike Williams, Hassan Reddick, Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, Javon Kinlaw, John Simpson, Olu Fashanu in the draft. Their only losses that I think are really going to affect them, they lose Bryce Hupp for the line. They lose John Franklin Myers. That's about it. I mean, Mekhi Becton might even be addition by subtraction for them, especially with how he has not looked great in camp, according to some people so far. But in my opinion, one of, if not the best offseason in football is the Jets. They improved what they needed to do going into this offseason was do whatever they can to improve everything surrounding Aaron Rodgers. The defense, we talked about it all last year. It was them and the Browns are the best 2 defenses all year long. And we talked about, man, all they have to do is just maintain this defense, keep the same guys around, wait till Aaron Rodgers comes back, give him an O-line, and they are contenders. And that's exactly what they did. They had the exact same defense. In fact, they got better on defense by adding Kinlaw and Hassan Reddick. I if I had to rank who I think is going to be the top 10 defenses day one, I have the Jets at one very easily. You give Aaron Rodgers arguably the best defense in the league. His two main targets offensively in the receiver department are going to be Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams, who, if Mike Williams can stay healthy, which is a big if, um, then Mike Williams is going to be a huge, huge part of this offense. Brees Hall's been a dominant running back. And then you look at the O line and how much that improved. Morgan Moses and John Simpson were both solid from Baltimore. Tyron Smith is a former All Pro from the Cowboys, of course. And then you draft Olu Fashanu from Penn State, who people are saying, I think he's a little banged up right now in camp, but they have really, really high expectations there for Olu Fashanu. I think he's going to be great for them. You surround Rodgers around all of this great talent. I don't know how he's not going to succeed. Roster wise, it's top five. If Rodgers stays healthy, I could see them either outright being the one seed in the AFC or at least a top 2 or 3 seed.
Yeah, I love what they did in the offseason. Bring in some guys that are veterans, maybe coming off injuries. They could get them a little cheaper, like a Mike Williams. Brought in Tyron Smith as well. They have some decent depth now at the tackle position with Smith. Brought in Morgan Moses, which was a fantastic addition. They got Olu Fashanu. On the defensive side, they were able to bring in a guy like Kinlaw who can maybe help at some depth. Maybe he booms and becomes a solid, very good defensive tackle. He was pretty good last year, 3.5 sacks, 12 pressures, had 4 tackles in the Super Bowl. But I'm a big fan of some of the draft as well. Braylon Allen, I think, is going to be a great running back. I already mentioned Olu Fashanu. Malachi Corley could be a nice depth receiver. Maybe Mike Williams isn't ready to go at the start of the season. He can step up. They still have Alan Lazard, who is he's known Rodgers for a long time. They can play together. My only concern with this team is Aaron Rodgers' Achilles. We saw him almost come back last season early from it, but now in camp, he's also already having some issues with his Achilles. It's just going to be a lot on him. I think he'll be ready to go. It's just he's getting older. It's an Achilles injury. You never know how they come back from that. If he's back healthy and can play sort of how he did a couple years ago, I think this could be a top 5 team in the NFL, but I'm just not certain that he can get back to that point. I'm hoping to see Garrett Wilson have a fantastic season. I've been saying it for a couple years now. I said it last year a lot. I felt bad for him all season when he had to deal with Zach Wilson and everything that was going on in that quarterback room. But I think this season he can finally have a top 5 wide receiver season. I mean, last year he had 95 catches for 1,042 yards with a lot of Zach Wilson. So this team's going to be on Aaron Rodgers' back. I love their defense. It's fantastic. They have a great secondary. Defensive line. Hassan Reddick, bringing him in is going to be great. Jermaine Johnson. They really don't have any holes on the defensive side of the ball, and they have some depth on the O-line. They improved the offensive line, which was the most important part, was improving that offensive line. I think they did it. So I really have no issues with what they did in the offseason. It's just going to be, can Aaron Rodgers stay healthy?
Yep. And moving on here to the New England Patriots. A lot to talk about with this team after the offseason. But during the offseason, they, of course, draft Drake May with the 3rd overall pick. They don't do, honestly, much at all after that. They got Chukwuma Okafor, KJ Osborne, and Antonio Gibson are their really only notable grabs. And if Antonio Gibson is in your notable grabs, then that's a problem. They also don't really lose anybody, though, either. They lose Mac Jones and Zeke, which is whatever. They lose Mike Gesicki, who's a good piece, but not the end of the world. Their biggest loss is probably Trent Brown, who went to the Bengals. It's a new age of New England football with Gerard Mayo. No more Belichick, of course. You have your best player wants out in Matt Judon. Who knows where he will go, but it looks like he's going to be traded before the season, probably in the next week or so. Hopefully not before this next podcast comes out. But Brissett was looking like he was going to be the starting quarterback. It looked like they were going to have Drake May at least sit for the beginning of the year, if not the whole year. And now camp rolls around. Drake May looks like shit. I haven't really heard anything about Jacoby Brissett. I don't even know if he's practicing right now. He might not be. Joe Milton looks great, I guess, or at least great compared to Drake May. So it's absolute confusion for the Patriots. Probably one of the worst teams in football. I don't know. I think Jacoby Brissett's a good enough quarterback that I don't think they're gonna be like 0-16 bad or 0-17 bad. But if Brissett plays the whole season, looking at the talent they have on both sides of the ball, I see this as a team that's very similar to last year's team record-wise, and they were 4-13 last year. I think we're going to see something very similar. at the end of the day, whether it's in practice or in a game or in sevens or whatever, I think the Patriots just want to see something promising out of Drake May this year. And for them, I hope they can, because if not, then man, that's tough.
Yeah, I'm with you. They just need to see something from Drake May. He doesn't really have too much to work with in the receiving room. They did bring in KJ Osborne, which is kind of a nice addition, but it's just a mid receiver. You got Juju back. He's been pretty bad since he's got to New England. Kendrick Bourne and Demario Douglas are your top two receivers. I like the drafting of Jalen Polk. I think he could be good, but really, that's kind of the only guy, except for maybe Hunter Henry, that you really have that Drake May can throw the ball to consistently. Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson isn't a terrible running back duo, but it's not ideal. Your offense, it's solid. Their offensive line can do a good job for them. They do bring in, obviously, Gerard Mayo, first-year head coach. New era in New England. They took down all of the signs in their practice facility that said "do your job" and replaced it with just the word "collaboration." So it's they say it's a completely new vibe. It went from just straight business to trying to have fun playing football, which it can go both ways. We've seen it work. Yeah. The only place we've really kind of seen that work so far is in Las Vegas with Antonio Pierce, and they were still business
didn't really
there.
Work. They still missed the playoffs.
I mean, they missed the playoffs, but they were way better than the strictly do your job with Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, he's not Belichick.
No. I had their coaching changes. Yeah, Alex Van Pelt is their new offensive coordinator. DeMarcus Covington is their new defensive coordinator. I do have something on Van Pelt. He didn't call plays. He was with the Browns in 2020 to 2023, but he was integral in making their West Coast offense under Deshaun Watson. They're going to be doing a lot out of the shotgun, and a lot of
for the Browns or the Texans?
The Browns. They're going to be doing a lot under center.
Okay, yeah, that worked fantastic for Deshaun.
Yeah, I know, but that's just what you can.
Flourishing career in Cleveland.
Yeah, so you can kind of expect. And then he brought in as his primary assistant, and just seeing this name made me feel weird. Ben McAdoo as his coaching assistant. That name just feels like a fever dream from the New York Giants. Legend. Yeah. I don't know who's going to start week 1. I kind of just expected to be Jacoby Brissett, let Drake May sit a little bit. But yeah, you need Drake May to just show promise. I think the top 3 in this division could interchange and finish in any spot. This is the one team I'm sure of it's going to finish 4th.
Yeah, I even think I might have been a little bit not too harsh on the defense. The defense is probably going to suck pretty bad too.
They get Christian Gonzalez back. I mean, their secondary isn't terrible.
Their secondary isn't terrible. Their front 7 without Judon's pretty trash, though.
Yeah, their front 7 without Judon is rough.
It's really. I mean, they have Tavai starting.
Yeah,
that tells you all you need to know. But
this isn't mud.
Big. Yeah, no, you're not gonna get a golden ticket to buy in real life. But no, Christian Gonzalez, that'll be big to see him back and hopefully performing like he was before he got injured. But finishing off the division here before we get into division awards, the Miami Dolphins, they add OBJ, Kendall Fuller, Jonnu Smith, Calais Campbell, Jordan Poyer from the Bills, who we just mentioned, Aaron Brewer, Jordan Brooks, and they draft Chop Robinson in the first round. They did have a ton of losses, but of course, like I just said, they had a ton of gains as well. Their losses: Jerome Baker, Cedric Wilson, Xavier Howard, Christian Wilkins, Andrew Van Ginkel, Deshaun Elliott, Raekwon Davis, and Brandon Jones are their notable exits. I think they did a pretty good job of replacing what they lost. Of course, it's tough to lose a guy like Xavier Howard for their secondary, but I think their secondary is still going to be pretty good. Jordan Poyer, I think, is going to fit nicely. Kendall Fuller is going to be a solid replacement for Xavier Howard. You still have arguably a top 3, top 2, maybe even the best corner in the league in Jalen Ramsey. I think their defense on the back end is going to be pretty okay. You lose Wilkins, which is a problem, of course, and you lose Jerome Baker, but I don't think Jordan Brooks is the worst replacement for Jerome Baker in your linebacking core. I don't think that's that bad. Christian Wilkins is going to hurt, but at the end of the day, they collapsed last year when their D-line got hurt. We know that. So that is a concern of mine. If they can stay healthy, and they're not going to be as talented this year, not having Wilkins, but they still have Calais Campbell. They still have Jalen Phillips. I'm not completely. They still have Emmanuel Agba, what's the deal with him? I know he just resigned, but there's something wrong with him, isn't there?
I don't know, but I don't know when some of these guys are coming back. I got to imagine Jalen Phillips will be out for at least the start of the season.
I would assume, yeah.
and even Bradley Chubb as well. Both injuries happened
Bangalore, but no,
later in the
he's active,
season.
I guess. I thought. Uh, oh, they had Shaq Barrett. He retired. Iowa
That's who
signed.
I was gonna mention that, yeah,
That's what it was.
because
Shaq Barrett. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was one of the additions. I was really excited for this team. I thought they would have a very good rotation, and then
Yes, but they get Agba back to replace him, of course. The offseason, Tua and Tyreek get huge paydays. They both need to produce wins after getting these huge paydays. Tyreek's going to do Tyreek, but I mainly mean that for Tua. Defense was solid last year. Like I said, they fell off due to those D line injuries. Hopefully, the guys that they have at D line or they're going to have when they get healthy are going to be able to produce and stay healthy. And hopefully, they don't have issues early on with some of these guys like Jalen Phillips, who probably won't be playing. I'm not really worried about their back end of their secondary. I'm not worried about their offense at all. I think they're going to have another top tier offensive season. I just don't see how they don't with all the weapons they have on offense, especially with their speed weapons. When you got A-Chain, you got Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill, Waddle, OBJ. It's hard to really worry about them offensively. I think Tua is going to be fine. Of course, Tua is another guy who we have to say if he stays healthy, he's going to be good. I like I like the Dolphins, not more or less than I liked them a year ago. I think I'm at the exact same point. I think they're going to be a really good team. I don't think they're going to be in the upper echelon. I don't think they're going to be able to go into Kansas City and get a win in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be able to go into New York and beat the Jets in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to. Who am I missing out of the top dog? I don't know.
Bengals.
I guess those are really the two teams that I see over everybody else. But regardless, I think the Dolphins are in that tier with the Bengals. I think they're maybe the Ravens are in that top tier. They're kind of
Ravens, yeah,
a murky area too. But I see the Dolphins in that same tier with the Bengals and the Texans of teams that are really good. They're super talented, but they're not as complete, at least on paper, in my opinion, as the Chiefs and the Jets. But regardless, I think this team's going to be super good. And because I already said who I have third, I do have them finishing above the Bills.
this is a team that I love their offense. Their offensive line does have some issues. They did lose Robert Hunt and Connor Williams on the interior. That does hurt them. But overall, their offense, skill position wise, really no holes at all. You have Tyreek Hill, Jayden Waddle. They brought in OBJ. Their receivers are going to be fine. Braxton Berrios as well. At running back position, I liked the signing or the drafting of Jalen Wright. I think that's another great depth piece. I think Devon A-Chain is going to have a great season. Hopefully he can stay healthy and produce how he did in the first couple weeks of last season when he was just on an absolute tear. It's just crazy that this team they started 9-3 last year and somehow blew the division to a slumping Bills team. Like you said, Tua, Tyreek Hill got paid. They just need to be more mentally tough. They can't. I mean, we've seen them go in a couple seasons, go into the playoffs, and just the temperature is one of the main reasons they lose. They have to not worry about the temperature at all. I love the drafting of Chop Robinson. This team has a lot of depth on the edge position. Jordan Brooks as well, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips. They just got to be healthy. They got Calais Campbell as well. They need to stay healthy. That has to be one of their main concerns is health. Brought in Jordan Poyer as well, another nice safety to bring in Kendall Fuller. I think this team could be very good. They gotta stay healthy. I think they need to, like I said earlier, they just need to stay mentally tough.
Okay, well, I'll do my standings really quickly before we get into awards, but I basically already said it. I have the Jets 1, the Dolphins 2, the Bills 3rd. I think the Dolphins and the Bills are going to be really close, and then the Patriots a far, far last place. But I have the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Bills all making the playoffs.
Yeah, I can see all three of them making the playoffs as well. I'm really struggling with 1 and 2. I think I trust Josh Allen more to put them at 1. So I think I'm gonna go Bills 1, Jets 2, very close between those two. Dolphins 3, and Patriots. I don't even have them at 4. I have them at 5. I have bye week at 4.
Are you Are you going to choose to ignore the Aaron Rodgers Achilles thing, like you're choosing to ignore Kirk Cousins?
I have the same concerns about Kirk Cousins.
Okay,
I have the same concerns about Kirk Cousins.
Because I mean, if we're going to not look at the injury, if we're going to say, oh well, he's a stationary quarterback, he doesn't have to move much, that shouldn't affect him. Then, I mean, let's go team for team with the Bills and the Jets here. What do the Bills have that's definitive?
Well, I just think Josh Allen is that much. I just think he's
that much better than Aaron Rodgers.
I think their offense is going to score a lot of points, and I think their defense is still going to be solid enough.
Better than the Jets?
Not better than the Jets, but I think their offense is going to be better than the Jets.
Hot
They've
take.
been there before. They know what they're doing.
That's true. I I personally like
They've
just I think there would have to be tragic injuries to the Jets for them to finish below the Bills, honestly.
and there could be.
Yeah, I mean there was
I
very
mean,
early
we
last year, but
it took 3 plays last year for that to happen.
I hope for the Jets that doesn't happen again. But
I do too. I think those teams are going to be. I think they could both be 11, 12 win teams. I just think it's. I kind of think the Bills have been
yeah,
there before. They know they can't start slow like they did last year, and they'll come out hot and play well.
just like I'm sizing up these teams when I'm thinking about them, and I'm like, how are the Bills going to beat the Jets? The Jets are going to pass all over the Bills. They're going to run all over the Bills. The Bills need to be able to run the ball to play good this year. They're not going to be able to run the ball on the Jets. They're not. Josh Allen isn't going to be able to do his fuckery on the Jets defense. I just struggle to find out how they're going to find a path to beat them. Right? I do.
I mean, that's only 2 games though. I think they can split those games.
Yeah, I guess. But if they play the playoffs, maybe.
And
I
overall,
assume they're
yeah,
both going to be in the playoffs, but
I think they will both make the playoffs. I will say that yes.
Um, and I could also see,
The AFC has a lot of teams this year, though.
yeah, I could see the Bills and the Dolphins both one of those two teams being a victim of just barely missing, because I think this division is going to be so good outside of the Patriots. But
We had a lot. I mean, yeah, it's just you can't predict injuries because last year we looked at our. I mean, predictions were damn near impossible with all the quarterback injuries. So
yeah, I mean that there's nothing you can do about that. I think we just have to try to predict it without injuries. But I mean, what are you going to do? I guess some guys are more subject to injuries than others. But for offensive rookie of the year, we might have the same one here because there's that or for not for offense but for defense. I don't know if you noticed significantly more big name offensive rookies in this division than defensive.
yeah.
There's really only one defensive big name to be honest, but and I don't even really like him as a prospect. But anyways, my offensive rookie of the year is Keanu Coleman.
Yeah, I have Keon Coleman as well. He's going to get the most volume out of I think any of the guys there.
That's where I'm at. I agree. And the only I'm trying to think of what the other big choices would be.
I mean, I like Braylon Allen, but I think
Olu. I was between him and Olu.
Oh, Olu too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Defensive rookie of the year. I mean, it's really just Chop unless you want to take
Yeah.
a guess on a guy that's in like a third rounder. But
Yeah, all I got is Chop Robinson.
neither of these teams used significant draft capital on defense this year.
I
Or
know.
okay. Offensive player of the year. I have
This is
Garrett
the
Wilson.
toughest. I think this and MVP are the two toughest one. I was going back and
I
forth.
forgot to do MVP, just like I did last year. But
Oh, yeah.
offensive player of the year, I'm going to do Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, offensive player of the year.
I think he's going to benefit a lot from his first time in his career. He's going to have a quarterback. First time in his career, he's going to have a good O line. First time in his career, he's going to have another receiver to take any pressure off of him. I think he's going to have a really, really good season, and he deserves it too.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to join you because I've been so high on Garrett Wilson. I think I picked him for this last year over Tyreek Hill as well.
And I'm picking Mike Williams for MVP, so that's
yeah. So they're gonna have maybe the best wide receiver duo of all time. Then
yeah.
both 2,000-yard receivers. I'm gonna go with Garrett Wilson, like you said. He's got Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully, this is the year he finally is able to. I said earlier, become a top 5 receiver statistically. I'd love to see that, but I mean, Tyreek Hill's a freak of nature.
I'm not gonna do this whole argument again because we did it on last episode. We did it with Zach when we were talking to him about last episode. I have Jalen Ramsey as my defensive player of the year. I'm not arguing against it. He had a small sample size last year when he came back from injury, and he was just as good as he was before the injury. I still think he's a top 3 corner. Give me Jalen Ramsey.
I mean, I think he's a top 5 corner as well, but I got Sauce Gardner as my DPOY. I think he's maybe the best corner in the NFL. We saw how great he's been so far in his career. People just don't throw it his way. He can lock down the whole side of the field. I got Sauce Gardner as my defensive player of the year of this division.
All right. Well, I didn't pick an MVP, so
There's options out
I'm going to
there.
go Tyreek Hill. I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
I think he is the best player in this division. As much as I love Josh Allen, and even though I feel like you're going to say I don't because I'm very harsh on the Bills and I just have been, you can look at there's definitely some videos of me out there, me praising Josh Allen. I know there's hundreds of words and blogs of me praising Josh Allen. I think there is a road to him having a bad season, and I don't think there's a road to Tyreek Hill having a bad season. So I gotta go with Tyreek.
I'm going with Josh Allen. I think he's a top 3 quarterback. I think he could be an MVP candidate in the NFL as a whole. I think he's going to have to be for this team to be as good as I predicted them to be. And that's why I'm at MVP. If I have them winning the division, I feel like he would have to be the MVP. So I got him as MVP.
Yep. All right. Moving on here to the NFC East. Starting out with the Cowboys. I'm not going to give my predictions before we do it this time. They were 12-5 in 2023, losing in the wild card round to the Green Bay Packers, similar to the Patriots, or not similar because they did lose a ton of guys. They lost a ton of guys: Gallup, Stephon Gilmore, Dorrance Armstrong Jr., Tyron Smith, who we just talked about, Leighton Vander Esch, Jaron Curse, Tyler. I can never pronounce his last name. It's like is the center. What? Or is he a
Bianish.
guard? Is that
Bianish.
it's really?
Bianish. Something like that. Yeah.
Well, they lost him too.
Yeah.
Who he went to another team in here, I believe.
I think he went to the Commanders.
Yes, so we will be talking about him a little bit later. But they only add Ezekiel Elliott back, an old Eric Kendricks, Royce Freeman. They had maybe I haven't ranked all 30 off seasons yet, and I don't think I'm ever gonna do that because it's kind of tedious. But Cowboys might be dead last if we're talking about free agencies. I will say though, I love what they did in the draft, especially in the first round. Being able to trade down and still get Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. They traded from like 21 to they traded with the Lions. They traded from 21 to 29, I believe, or to 28. And they still get Guyton. They could have got him at 21. They still get him at 29. I think that's a great pickup for them. They need to boost the interior offensive line. But this isn't a team that desperately needed to have a super active offseason, so I'm not going to hold that against them too much. I think the offense should still remain really good. They definitely need to figure out some sort of a run game. That was a problem for them last year. They just had no run game, which in my opinion, as I look back on it, um, that makes it even more impressive to me how great Dak was last year and this offense was because they had no run game. They had nothing to lean on. Other teams knew they were going to be passing it every play. Other teams knew they were going to be giving it to CD every play, and they still were able to be successful, at least in the regular season they were. I still think their defense is going to get solid too. Is going to continue to be solid too, but the problem is they didn't get better anywhere. They didn't get better in any position except for maybe guard. But even then, I don't know. You look at the team that they're competing with, they're so close roster wise to the Eagles, and the Eagles got so much better, and the Cowboys didn't do shit. And that's a problem for me with the Cowboys. I still think they're going to be really good. I still think they're going to be a playoff team, but to have such a disappointing flake out at the end of last season and then to respond by let's just run it back, even though we're going to lose like 8 guys that are pretty important to our team. Let's still just run it back with basically the same guys. Doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything you said. They lose Dan Quinn as well. Their DC, who was great for them. They bring in Mike Zimmer, which is why the one signing they did kind of make, like you had mentioned, Eric Kendricks. I love that signing for them. He's been with Mike Zimmer most of his career.
Yep.
That signing makes a lot of sense. He can command that defense. The defense should still be good. They'll get Trayvon Diggs back. I guess you could view that as an addition. But yeah, like you said, really nothing much in the offseason. I really wanted them to maybe draft a running back. I mean, if they would have drafted a guy like Braylon Allen, I think that could have been huge for him, a young guy like
drafted
that.
Ray Davis.
Ray Davis as well, yeah. That could have been a big one, but they didn't. They opted not to, and now
likes his Stoops guys too. I'm shocked they didn't do that.
yeah, now their running back room's looking like Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dowdle, and Royce Freeman. Not great. I mean, they also have Deuce Vaughn as well. Maybe it's time for him to finally come out.
I could low key see Zeke having kind of a good year.
I mean, I feel like he will just because of the fact that he's going to get the ball. Yeah. I could see him just being a touchdown guy, especially in the red zone.
Yeah.
I mean, 3rd and 1s.
He's a good receiving back too.
Game. Receiving back, yeah.
I'd rather have him in there than Royce Freeman.
Yeah.
I mean, by a lot too.
I mean, he's listed as their RB1. He's going to have to be.
Yeah.
But like you had mentioned, Dak Prescott was phenomenal last year. I still don't think he gets enough flowers for how good he really was. Led the NFL in passing touchdowns. Had CeeDee Lamb looking like the best receiver in the NFL that season. CeeDee Lamb also was dealing with some contract issues in the offseason, but he did get paid. I think he's the highest paid receiver in the NFL now, so good for him. I'm happy for him. He's well-deserved, phenomenal. I love Jake Ferguson still as well. I think this offense will still be good. It just sucks that they were unable to get better. And like you said, we'll talk about the Eagles in a little bit here, but the Eagles made a lot of big moves that I really like. The Cowboys team, besides Eric Kendricks, there's not a move that I can look at and be ecstatic about for him.
I'm not ecstatic about Eric Kendricks either. He was really, I'm not last year.
I'm not ecstatic about it.
He was a negative player.
He was It's just he knows the defense. I think he'll
Yeah.
definitely be better than he was last season for sure.
I'd hope, yeah.
He's gonna have to be. Last season, 11 of the 17 teams they did play were 21st or worse defensively. So that was part of the reason why their offense was so successful, especially without a run game. They're going to have to be better. And Zeke, like we just said, is going to
I'd
have
assume you could say the same thing about the Eagles, though.
Yeah.
I'd
I
assume
mean,
the Eagles had a similar situation.
and their offense was still rough.
Yeah, yeah, which says a lot about Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. So
We'll get to that later.
we'll see. I think this Cowboys team could still be good. I think they will still be good. I just don't see them being as good as they were last season, especially since they were so phenomenal at home last season. They're going to have to continue that as well.
Yep.
Averaged about 30 points per game.
Yeah, they were great at home until they weren't.
Yeah.
And then they really weren't. But oh wow, Rowdy Tellez swinging bunt Oppo RBI. Beautiful. They had obviously nobody near third base for him.
Swinging bunt. Nothing like a little swinging bunt.
Yep, for an RBI, you love to see it. And a double thumbs up from the boy. But all right, moving on here to the New York Football Giants. They lose Adoree Jackson, Saquon Barkley, A'Shawn Robinson, and Xavier McKinney are their big losses. 3 of those 4 are pretty big losses. A'Shawn Robinson, not really, but outside of that, they didn't lose too many other guys. They add Brian Burns, Jermaine Illuminar from the Raiders, Devin Singletary, Allen Robinson. They also draft Malik Neighbors and Tyler Nubin, who's a safety from Minnesota. We had a conversation, I think, about the Giants like towards the end of the football season. Maybe it was like in March or something. And we're like, this team's in a horrible. I think it might have been right after free agency. We're like, this team's in a horrible spot. They don't know what they're going to do. They don't really have any money. And I still feel that way. But maybe it's just because they went out and got Brian Burns, and I think they had a pretty good draft. I think Malik Neighbors is going to be really good. But I don't think they're in as bad of a situation as we thought. I've come around a little bit on Danny Dimes. The whole season rides on him. We know that for 100% of fact. Maybe it's when I think about him and I try to think positive about him, I just think about him going into Minnesota and winning a playoff game. And it's just hard to go into. I know there's going to be West Coast fans and South fans or Northeast fans who are, oh, we're the best fans, whatever. There's something about going into a North environment in the playoffs for the NFL where it is really, really hard to play. Minnesota is one of those places where it's really hard to play, and he went in there and got a win just a year and a half ago. He got hurt last year. He's going to be back this year. The O-line, I'm convinced, is never going to be good, so we can't count on that being a thing. They're not going to have any run game, but even with at times with Saquon, they didn't have any run game because of how bad their O-line was. But this is probably the best receiving weapons that Danny Dimes has had, especially with Malik Neighbors. I think he's going to be one of the best rookies in the league. And I had some other notes here talking about where I'm going to have them in the division, but I will skip that because we're saving that for the end. But defensively, they're very, very solid up front. I'm not too concerned. I will say in camp, in the joint practices with the Lions, Goff never got touched in 7-on-7s or just any sort of scrimmage drills, but
Lions
best offensive line in the league. So that I'm not concerned about that at all for them. I think they're going to have a pretty solid front seven. I'm way more concerned about their secondary, especially without McKinney, than anything. I think they're going to be a team that gets passed all over. They're probably going to be pretty good against the run. They're probably not going to be able to run the ball, and I think they're going to be a decent passing team. But overall, this is not a team that I think sniffs 500. I think it's going to be a team with another high draft pick next year. But hopefully for them, regardless of how they finish the year with closure on, are we keeping Daniel Jones or are we getting rid of him?
That's exactly what I was going to say. This has to be the season on you make your decision on Daniel Jones. You have to. Really, he's got the weapons for maybe the first time in his career. I really like the receiving room. 27.
Yeah, he is 27. That was shocking to me, though. I found that out this week. That was shocking to me.
Yeah, that's not young anymore. He's got to prove it. Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, Isaiah Hodgins. That's not bad.
He's only 2 years younger than Jared Goff. That was crazy to me.
That does feel crazy.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a running back room. Tyrone Tracy, rookie. he's going to have to stand out and really be something if they're going to have any sort of a run game. I'm not a fan of Devin Singletary. I look at this team and I see, like, on the offensive side, the receivers look pretty good, but they just have so many holes. Like you had touched on, the secondary is outside of Deontay Banks, really nothing out there. Really nothing. Their linebackers are solid. I like Bobby Okereke. Isaiah Simmons is solid. I think their front seven's good. Their D line. I know that you said they struggle against the Lions, but like you said, the Lions O line is phenomenal. I think their D line is going to be great. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, they'll be good. But losing Xavier McKinney just absolutely is killer. You lose your best player, Saquon Barkley, and you replace him with Devin Singletary. I just don't know how much. I don't know if this team can really be better. It's just Daniel Jones is going to have to show up and actually play for some money. And if he's not, maybe you put in Drew Lock and see what Drew Lock can do. So, yeah, outside of Daniel Jones, they have to decide what to do with him this season. I don't think this team sniffs the playoffs, but the receiving room is nice, and hopefully that can give the fans some hope.
Yeah, the receiving room is pretty nice, to be honest.
It's deep, too.
Like, they
I kept looking down and seeing, Isaiah McKenzie, Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, they have pieces. I mean, Allen Robinson is there's absolutely.
It's just funny because it's just funny.
Yeah, he is in there. Jalen Hyatt's pretty good. Wan'Dale Robinson, I think, is going
to. Oh, you didn't mention on the losses as well. We are devastated to say that Darren Waller retired.
Yeah. Heartbreaking. My heart goes out to him. I know Kelsey Plum did him dirty. No, I'm kidding. I'm on Team Kelsey Plum. Fuck Darren Waller. But I actually kind of like Devin Singletary, to be honest. I mean, he has no O-line, so he's going to stand no chance, but still.
Yeah, Lambda slaughter.
And I heard, speaking of the Lions-Giants joint practice, and they play tomorrow in the preseason. Hopefully nothing from the practices comes onto the preseason field. But I heard that Andrew Thomas was just getting fucking bullied.
I mean, he's terrible, man.
It's unbelievable how they continue to draft.
I don't know how they do
so high, and they're so bad. How are they always so bad? Like, it's not even like this bust. They're just like Evan Neal. Where even is he?
He's listed as out.
I don't even see him on the depth chart. There he is.
Jeez. And remember, it wasn't him at the end of the season who was talking. Was that Evan Neal who was saying something about the fans?
Evan Neal, who was it? Like Francesa? Was it Francesa that was going off about Evan Neal on the radio?
Yeah, because they were booing him, and it was the dude on the radio, and he lashed out back to the dude on the radio. Yeah,
I remember that was crazy. That was hilarious, though.
I don't know how that was a highlight. They did bring in John Runyon, which is a nice guard to add. Hopefully, John Michael Schmitz can have a good sophomore season.
Yeah,
but man.
The tackle, Jermaine Illuminor from the Raiders, I think is actually not horrible either. But still.
But, I mean, they'll go to the Giants and absolutely
they're going to be fucking trash. Sneakily, though, maybe one of the most underrated D-lines in the league, though.
Oh, yeah, I love this D-line. I looked at the D-line, I was like, man, this is just, like I said, a team that
Burns, Lawrence, Thibodeau is a good 3. That's a good 3.
Ojulari's very solid as well.
Yeah, definitely. I remember back in the day before Ojulari made the league when we would have his like auto-generated player in Madden. He used to be nasty.
He was
really good. He was really good.
He didn't end up being in like the 4th season.
Yeah, he never ended up panning out to be anything close to that. But he's still solid. But all right, we can move on here to the Commanders. They were 4-13 in 2023. They of course draft Jaden Daniels. They also draft Jazon Newton. He's a D tackle from Illinois, I believe. Beat that out. Damn it. They go and they get Michael Davis, Austin Eckler, Dorrance Armstrong Jr. from the Cowboys, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Luvo, Nick Allegretti, Jeremy Chin, Tyler Biadish. Is that what you said? Biadish? That's how you pronounce it?
Yeah, something like that. Biadish.
Yeah. Okay. And they also get him in free agency, and he's actually pretty good as well. So I think this O-line is going to be significantly improved. It went from the worst O-line to an O-line that, well, I want to pull up the exact depth chart to see who's healthy and not. But
they were on pace to.
You said what?
They were on pace break the sack record last year.
They were horrible
most of the season.
Their left side still really sucks. Nick Allegretti's all right, but their left side still really sucks. But from Biadish to Cosme to Wiley, that's a good right side.
That's solid. Yeah.
Jaden Daniels is going to be fine. Unfortunately for him, he's a righty, so that doesn't really matter too much for him. But he's still going to get probably smacked from his blind side. But I guess you could just move everybody over, but whatever. I think they're going to be a lot better on the right side. I think they're going to be able to run the ball lot better because of that. If Daniels can stay healthy, he can be very, very good. My opinion about Jaden Daniels has not changed since the beginning of last college football season. I think he's an insane talent. I think he could be an insane NFL talent, but his play style and his body, I don't think are going to mix. And I think he's going to have a short career due to that. I really hope that doesn't happen because he's insanely talented. But my opinion stands. If he can stay healthy, he can be one of the best young quarterbacks in the game. If he can't, it's not going to work out. It's going to be pretty sad. I'm iffy on Dan Quinn as a head coach. I just don't know how to feel about it yet. We'll see. Unfortunate for them. They wanted Ben Johnson. It looked like they were going to get Ben Johnson, but that's unfortunate. Front seven is okay for them. Secondary is bad. I think this defense as a whole is going to be pretty bad. I wouldn't be shocked if they outplay the Giants somehow, but I don't know, man. They're not ready to enter this new era like a team like the Bears are, where they're ready with Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has everything. Jaden Daniels does not have everything. I forgot to mention the losses. They also lost Kendall Fuller in their DB room, of course. They lose Curtis Samuel. They lost Antonio Gibson. They also lost, kind of crazy, their 4 losses all went to teams that we've talked about already, which is their 4 main losses. But regardless, I don't know completely how to feel about this team yet. They're going to be bad. I know that. But I think for them, the main thing is Jaden Daniels stays healthy and he shows promise. And as long as he stays healthy, I think he's going to. So, God damn it. As long as he stays healthy, I think he's going to show promise. I'm rooting for him. I think he has enough weapons to succeed. Like Brian Robinson is a really, really good running back. Oh, I didn't even mention Jahan Dotson. He's got to figure it the fuck out this year. I'm going to be honest, I don't have that much confidence that that's going to happen. But regardless, I still am going to forever believe in Terry McLaurin. I still think he's a stud receiver. I think Jaden Daniels is going to he does enough on his feet that I don't think the lack of weapons is going to kill him that much. Zach Ertz is their tight end 1, which I didn't know until this very moment. But yeah, I think Jaden Daniels is going to have a productive rookie year, and I hope the first thing they're teaching him is sliding.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels has to stay healthy. That has to be their main priority. Help him develop. You don't want to have kind of an Anthony Richardson situation where he gets hurt. I think Jaden Daniels is already.
That's exactly what I mean. I mean, that's the exact model of what I'm scared of for him.
Yeah, he's 23, so he's not as young as Anthony Richardson was when he got drafted. He's got the weapons.
Also bigger and more filled out too.
Oh yeah, he's definitely more susceptible to injury, just size wise. They got a solid running game. They brought in Austin Eckler as well, which I mean, he's pretty washed. But you got Brian Robinson Jr. Still, I think he's very good. You got the receivers like you touched on. I think Luke McCaffrey in the slot could be very good for Jaden Daniels as well. Someone he can slowly develop a connection with. Both rookies. I like Zach Ertz as a tight end. Ben Sinnott as well, rookie tight end. He's solid. The offensive line, like you said, it sucks, but I think with Jaden Daniels' mobility, it could just kind of be okay. It's way better than it was last year. So it's really the defensive side of the ball. You have some holes. They brought in some guys that I like. The secondary one draft pick I like is Mike Sanderstill. He went to Michigan. I'm not a Michigan fan, but he was a receiver that turned into a cornerback and was always making big plays. I think he's going to be good. They still got Emmanuel Forbes, who I don't think put on any weight, which will not be good for them. I saw a picture in the offseason of him doing a training camp in his hometown, and he looked like a middle schooler next to one of his.
I didn't even want to mention him because I felt bad. I feel like he might be going through something, dude. It looks bad.
Yeah.
It looks really bad. You don't lose that much weight unless something's going on. Yeah. And also, though, I also will say, though, bad angles exist.
Bad angles do exist.
We haven't really seen any other pictures outside of that one, but that one looks really bad.
Yeah, I mean, he looked like he had my body out there playing the NFL, which is not ideal at all. That is not what you want. That's a one-way ticket to a couple broken bones. They got some guys on the D-line. They brought in Dorrance Armstrong as well. You still have Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, who are great. And then Jerzon Newton, who was your draft pick. I think he's going to develop as well. I can see Jonathan Allen getting flipped at the deadline this season, bring in a couple draft picks. This team is not going to contend for the playoffs, but your goal, just see Jaden Daniels develop, stay healthy, and maybe next year you're trying to compete for a wild card spot, but it'll be interesting to see. I need Jahan Dotson to please Jahan Dotson do something. Hopefully last year was just a sophomore slump. I've been big on Jahan Dotson since he got drafted, and it has not worked out for me. So need him to show up.
I didn't get to see the Pirates lineup before the game today, so I'm seeing it as it unfolds. Guess who they have batting fifth today?
Batting fifth. I got no clue.
Switch hitter.
Switch hitter.
Yasmani Grandal.
Oh my gosh. Jeez.
Fifth is
Really moved
crazy,
up
dude.
I don't know if he ever snipped top six with the. He might have just been six with the Sox.
He's been six a couple times. 5 is a new one. 5 is crazy, dude. And not even for skiing.
Who's your cleanup hitter? Rowdy?
Rowdy, yeah.
Yeah, so
it's I think it's probably Kutch, B-Ray, IKF, Rowdy, him. I think that's our top 5 right now, but
and you're somehow contending for a playoff spot. That's impressive.
I mean, we're back down to 500. If we lose this game, we're under and it's a wrap. But yeah. Last team here in the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles, who went 11-6 last season, lost in the wild card round to the Buccaneers. We've talked about it a million times on here, how they fell apart in the last part of the season, last 8-ish games. Their secondary just completely went to shit. Everything with Matt Patricia that happened, that is just still mind-blowing how that happened. They lose Big Dom. Yep, they lose Big Dom. Jalen Hurts goes on a fucking just stops making any correct decisions. All they had was the tush push. That was the only thing they had, and it's not enough to carry you. Luckily for them, before we get into the ads, the biggest ad, a new part of the official coaching staff of the Philadelphia Eagles, Big Dom. Congratulations.
Oh, he's back.
He is. I think he's like team operations or something, or I think he's like game day play calling or something. I don't know. He's some shit. He's not. Hopefully, he's not actually play calling. But imagine he gets Matt Patricia's job.
That's the only way they can get him on the sideline.
Yes, he can only be a coordinator.
That'd be gotta do what you gotta do.
It's good to have him though. They needed him. We saw they definitely needed him.
Without him, they collapsed. So,
the biggest losses. They definitely have some big losses. I wrote Shaquille Leonard on here. He's not a big loss, so I don't know why I even wrote that. But Hassan Reddick, definitely. Kevin Byard was solid, not great for them. But DeAndre Swift, definitely a big loss. Jason Kelsey, of course, one of the best offensive linemen of all time. He retires, was probably the best center in the league when he retired, arguably. But they had Saquon Barkley, who I'll get into in a minute. He's going to be phenomenal. They're taking a chance on guys like Devin White, guys like CJ Gardner-Johnson, who don't have high value right now, especially the way that CJ Gardner-Johnson went out was just so sad. Devin White just was bad last year. They add Bryce Huff to their edge, and then they go in the draft, and what is their number one need? Corners, and they go Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean back-to-back. Very exactly what the Lions did. We'll talk about them here in a few weeks. But I love what the Eagles did. I think they had a phenomenal offseason. They completely revamped the secondary, which was the biggest reason they fell apart last year. I think Quinyon Mitchell is going to be fantastic. I'm not as sure about Cooper DeJean as I am about Mitchell, but I still think Cooper DeJean is going to be good for them. The O-line got worse, but it's still pretty good even without Jason Kelsey. Saquon is going to thrive, man. I think he's going to be so good this year. One of the best running systems in the league, if not the best. It's probably, I'm trying to think, running systems.
Baltimore.
The 4 best are Baltimore, San Fran, Eagles, and the Lions, I'd assume, right?
Colts
maybe too, yeah. I mean, they're in that. Eagles are in that group for sure, though. Saquon, you put Saquon on any of the teams we just named, he's gonna be significantly more successful than he was on the Giants, which may be the worst running system in the league. Better offensive play calling, I think, is a must. Better decision making from Jalen Hurts is absolutely a must. I think that he is a guy who needs to get significantly more criticism than he's getting, and he's getting a lot of criticism. He needs to be really good this year. He is, for the 1,000,000th time in his career, every single year in his career, he has been spoon-fed a perfect situation. He cannot fuck this up again. They need to at least be in the NFC title game. If they're not, then it's a significant
downgrade from what they are expecting from themselves. Their defense is solid on the front end, they're solid on the back end. There's a lot of young players who need to meet high expectations, and I get that. And for that reason, I don't think the Eagles are a top 2 team in the NFC. That's not really that hot of a take, but I don't think they're a top 2 team in the NFC. But regardless, I think they have enough veteran talent and enough young talent who can be good that I think they have the ceiling of a 1 seed. I don't believe in it's kind of the opposite of the Bills to me. I really believe in Josh Allen and I really believe in Sean McDermott. Everything else on the Bills is a question mark to me. The Eagles, I believe in most of the supporting cast. I don't feel great about Nick Sirianni and I don't feel great about Jalen Hurts. But what situation would you rather be in? Great head coach and quarterback, but everything else is a question mark, or great supporting cast and a question mark on head coach and quarterback? I don't know. But regardless, I still think the Eagles are going to be a good team, and I still think they're going to be a guaranteed playoff team.
I feel like they have to be a playoff team. If they're not, Jalen Hurts has to be a bottom. If they're not on pace for the playoffs halfway through the year, they might almost have to throw Kenny Pickett in there and see what he can do. This team started 10-1 last year. They finished 1-5. Obviously, got bounced in the first round by the Buccaneers. They lose leaders on both sides of the ball with Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey, but their play calling really could not have been any worse last season on both sides of the ball. They bring in Kellen Moore to call offense, Vic Fangio to call defense. I don't trust Nick Sirianni as a head coach at all, but he has 2 corners that I think will be able to lead this team to a pretty good season. Kellen Moore, I think he knows he has to get the ball to Saquon Barkley a lot. I think he will. Saquon Barkley have a big season. They have maybe the best wide receiver duo in the NFL with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. It really doesn't get much better than that. You still got Dallas Goedert. This offensive line, even without Jason Kelsey, you move Cam Jurgens to center. You got Tyler Steen now at right guard. That's maybe the only question mark on the O-line. I think they'll still be good. Tackles are getting older. Lane Johnson is. He's still one of the best offensive tackles in the league. I had him in my top 5. This offense just has to be fine. Jalen Hurts, if he finds a way to nerf this offense, I don't know, man. I just don't see it. The defensive side of the ball is the only side I still maybe see some question marks, really just because Devin White struggled. But even behind Devin White, this defense has a lot of depth. Jeremiah Trotter, I like him as a prospect out of the draft. You still got Nakobe Dean, a young guy. Like you said, their cornerbacks, their secondary as a whole was terrible last season. They dealt with a couple injuries. Avonte Maddox, their slot corner, did get hurt. They have him back this season. James Bradbury was toast. They convert him to a safety, it looks like. So now he's their backup behind Reed Blank. They have him listed as a free safety, so they have him as a free safety. I think that could be a good move because really, with all the moves they made, they almost have an overflow too many cornerbacks now to almost play. You still got Keely Ringo, who wasn't great, but they get Isaiah Rodgers back from suspension. His last year with the Colts before the suspension, he was very, very good for the Colts. Now, I mean, he does have a year off of football, but I think he can be very good for the secondary as well. Darius Slay has to be better. You draft Kenyon Mitchell, who I think we'll talk about him again here in a little bit for me. I think he's going to be very good. You got Cooper DeJean as well, who maybe he goes and plays safety, which would be unfortunate. I'd like to see him play corner, but they just got a lot.
Return punts too. He's going to make some sort of difference.
He's going to make a difference, yeah. You still got Josh Sweat as a defensive end, Brandon Graham. You got a lot of depth there. It has to be a big season for nose tackle Jordan Davis. He's kind of had another guy he hasn't really had much criticism early in his career, but he has to be better. Jalen Carter, I trust him. He just has to be on the field more than I think he only played about 45% of the snaps last season. But I love Vic Fangio. I know he had a really bad time, I guess, with the Broncos and last year with the Dolphins. I think he can get this defense right, and I think they'll be good.
All right. So moving on here to the standing predictions. In 4th, I have the Commanders. In 3rd, I have the Giants. In 2nd, I have the Cowboys. And I have the Eagles taking back the division. Reminder, I don't know exactly how many years, but it's been a very long time since the team repeated in this division. I'll get the numbers on that while you give yours.
Yeah, I know it's been a long time, but I have the exact same as you. Have the Commanders in 4th. I just don't think they have the roster for it. Same with the Giants. I think you could swap those two, and then you could swap the top 2. But I got Eagles 1st, Cowboys 2nd, Giants 3rd, Commanders 4th. I trust this Eagles team as a whole more than I trust the Cowboys team. They had a better offseason. They fixed their holes, and With Jalen Hurts just has to get it done.
I have the number here. Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb's Eagles won the NFC East title 4 years in a row from 01 to 04, and since then there has not been a repeat winner. So that's insane.
I think it's just confirmed then that the Eagles take it back because there's no shot the Giants or Commanders win it.
Wait, what do you? Oh yeah, no, yeah, it has to be the Eagles or the streak ends at 20 years. But all right, moving on.
We thought it was going to end last year, but
yeah, it almost did, and it was very close. The Eagles collapsed so hard to lose that.
It's impressive how.
Yeah, we could see it again this year. That'd be insane. But we're gonna have, I think, probably the same rookies here. But I have Neighbors for offense and Quinyon Mitchell for defense. I'm assuming that's what you have.
Yeah, I have Neighbors as my offensive rookie of the year. I'm very excited to see him. He's going to be hopefully the alpha in this room.
He's already picking fights after losing reps.
Oh yeah, so. And I mean, I like that out of a receiver. He's scrappy. He's made a lot of big plays though.
I'd rather my receiver win the rep than start.
I mean, he's won a lot of reps. Yeah. He's been very good in camp. I've seen a lot from him. I have honorable mention though, Jane Daniels, because
he's probably been great against that shitty ass Giants secondary.
Maybe that's why he looks so good though.
I haven't seen him do shit this week, but
I have Sanders still as an honorable mention as well for defense. But yeah, I got Quinyon Mitchell as my DROY.
I guess my honorable mention for OROY would be Jaden Daniels if it all goes well for them in Washington, but that's a big if for them. I think it's a better chance that we see a great season out of Neighbors than something extraordinary out of a Commanders team that I just don't expect much out of, to be honest. OPOY, I have CeeDee Lamb. He was the best receiver in the NFL last year statistically. I still think he's going to be really good for the Cowboys. I don't think he's going to have as good of a year because it's hard to repeat when you're just doing the same thing over and over again, and they're just not going to have a run game again. I think them not having a run game is going to catch up to them a little bit, and we're going to see some regression in total offense from the Cowboys, but I still think they're going to be a top half offense in the league. I still think CeeDee Lamb is one of the most dynamic receivers in the league. He got paid. I think he's going to have a good year. I have CeeDee Lamb at OPOY.
Yeah, this is tough because for MVP, I got two guys. One could move down. I'll go for OPOY. I'll go with Saquon Barkley. I think he's going to be great with this Eagles team. I think he's going to be back to one of the top running backs in the NFL. This is the best position he's been in his career, and I think it's going to show. I think he's going to have a phenomenal season.
All right, DPOY. I have. I don't know if you remember, but last year when we were doing this, I completely forgot about Micah Parsons existing, and I picked Hassan Reddick. But I'm going to pick Micah Parsons as DPOY. I do not think that he's in the tier of. Well, I think he's in the tier, but I don't think he's as good as, say, T.J. Watt, say Myles Garrett. I mean, we legitimately just did this last week, but. Regardless, I still think he's one of the better defensive players in general in the league. I think he's definitely the best defensive player in this division, and I think that carries on.
Yeah, I really want to put him at MVP. I just don't know who I would really put at DPOY in this division if I didn't do that. I'll put him at DPOY. I'll mention I think Trayvon Diggs could have a phenomenal season coming back from his torn ACL, but I'll have Micah Parsons as my DPOY. He's, like you said, he's the best defensive player in this division. He's a top 5 defensive end. Yeah, Dexter Lawrence as well. I mean, Deron Payne's good. Maybe, I mean, you could say maybe like a Brian Burns.
Yeah. There's probably going to be a lot of production from that Giants D line just because there's so many guys to guard.
Like, yeah, too many mouths to feed.
But MVP, I have Saquon Barkley. I just think he's going to be fucking phenomenal this year. I think he was one of the most talented running backs we've seen coming out of the draft in a long time. I think he showed his talents while being in arguably the worst run system with one of the worst O-lines in the league, and he still showed success through all that. And it's going to be a lot easier for him to show off his skills when he gets spoon-fed wide open holes to run through. I think he's going to have a fantastic year. I think he's going to have a Christian McCaffrey. If he can stay healthy, I think he's going to have a Christian McCaffrey statistical season running the ball, and I think we're going to see easily the best season of Saquon's career this year. Nope, not going to be as many touchdowns because they cheese with the fucking tush push, but yards-wise, he's going to be phenomenal. And he'll probably break a lot, too, and get touchdowns through that. But
who knows how well the tush push will be this year without Jason Kelsey, too. I guess I didn't mention that in the preview.
I think a lot of it's Jalen Hurts, though.
I think it's Jalen Hurts. For MVP, I swapped you. I have CeeDee Lamb at MVP. He had maybe the best season
I
as
had
a
Saquon
receiver.
at OPOY, and then when I realized we had MVP, I just moved Saquon over.
Yeah, I think those two could be interchangeable. I think these are the two best offensive players in this division by far. We saw how great Dak was last season, but I don't think I think a lot of that was CeeDee Lamb being as a phenomenal receiver as he is. He's due for another great season. He got paid, so hopefully he stays motivated. I think he will. This offense is going to be good. They're going to have to pass a lot with Ezekiel Elliott as a running back one. And so I think CeeDee Lamb is going to get a lot of targets, a lot of yards again, and be another top 3 production season as long as he can stay healthy.
All right, so that about does it for this episode of the Engage A Pod. We will be back next week doing the AFC and NFC West division previews, giving a breakdown for each team's offseason and how we project them for next season, as well as giving our standing projections for those divisions and OROY, DROY, OPOY, DPOY, and MVP for every division. So make sure to tune in the next few weeks to watch your team and your division. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Hit the links in the description for all of our Spotify, TikTok, all that good stuff. And we'll see everybody next week.